Welcome to episode number 28 of the Blitz. I am here with NBC LA sports reporter Michael Duarte, and he's coming live from our stadium where the Pac-12 Championship was played last night, and I'm excited to hear what his thoughts are on the game. So welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me on.
So my first question is, what were your initial thoughts on how the whole game went?
I mean, this was a game that, unfortunately, for the USC Trojans, unfortunately for the Utah Utes, hinged on the hamstrings of soon-to-be Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams. USC was absolutely dominating and controlling the game in that first quarter. They go down and go up at some point 17-3, but on that second touchdown drive that USC scored to go up 14-3, Caleb Williams pulled his hamstring on a 59-yard run that he should have taken to the house. And he described it to the media after the game of if you've had like an old rubber band that, kind of gets cracked and stressed and can just snap very easily with any pressure. He described his hamstring on that run as that, an old rubber band snapping. And obviously, Alex, we talk about a lot about LA sports. I've been on your show before talking about the Lakers. Caleb probably should have come out of the game, but he told his coach he wanted to stay in the game. At that point, he was less than 50% at his own admission. And the backup quarterback for the USC Trojans was warming up on the sidelines. But Caleb Williams said his favorite athlete growing up was Kobe Bryant. He remembered a quote that Kobe had told him, which is, the game is bigger than what you're feeling. And so Caleb said he tried to put that hamstring pain and that injury in the back of his mind and say that the game was bigger and to go out there and try to lead his team to a victory on one leg. But obviously, once he was on one leg, he wasn't the Heisman Trophy quarterback we've seen all season long. He was no longer mobile in the pocket. If he can't be mobile in the pocket, and create space with his feet, he can't find receivers. He can't extend plays. He can't get first down runs with his feet. Essentially, the USC offense becomes one-dimensional. And hearing from Kyle Whittingham, the Utah head coach, after the game, he said once they knew he was injured, it was like blood in the water. They just started blitzing every down. They started going after him. They increased the pressure, intensified it. And ended up getting 7 sacks against Caleb Williams in the second half. And once that score was 17-3, Utah outscored USC 44-7 from that point on. So at that point, that was the game right there. And it really hinged on that hamstring of Caleb Williams.
What were your thoughts on the performances from Jordan Addison and Taj Washington?
Yeah, I mean, Taj Washington was part of that big first quarter that we talked about. He had a big play to set up the first touchdown that he ended up scoring on a little 3-yard scoop, but it was a bigger play before that set up that touchdown. I will say Taj Washington, though, dropped a big play in the second half that probably could have helped USC and kept their offense on the field. Instead, he drops a sure first down, and they end up having to punt. Who knows what that could have changed the game. Jordan Addison had a pretty decent game, but unfortunately, most of those plays happen after the Caleb Williams injury. And at that point, if he can keep a play alive, which he did every now and then, he was able to find Jordan Addison a few times. But I think if Caleb Williams is healthy, Jordan Addison ends up having a monster game and probably a couple touchdowns.
What were your thoughts on Caleb Williams playing through the injury?
Yeah, I just thought, this is going to be one of those moments where we're going to look back and say, what could have been, right? Obviously, what could have been had he not gotten injured. I think USA ends up winning this game, and I think they end up winning it big if he doesn't get injured. As you saw, what he was able to do with his feet and extend drives and extend plays in that first quarter up until that hamstring injury. But the second part is, what could have been had Lincoln Riley as a head coach gotten in the way of his star player and said, I have to sit you and put you on the bench. I have to do what's right and what's best for this team. And then we would have been interesting, I suppose, to see what USC could have done on the field with backup quarterback Miller Moss in the game, let's say even at halftime, right? I was just talking about this with a colleague of mine. Remember that Alabama championship game against Georgia? I believe it was 2017 when, and you're going to love this, Alex, when Nick Saban ends up pulling Jalen Hurts, now the Eagles star quarterback and possibly the MVP frontrunner right now, pulling him from the game at the half because they were struggling, putting in current Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, who was the backup at the time, and they go on to win the national championship in overtime. So to me, I wonder what would have been had USC put in Miller Moss at halftime, kept with a different kind of game plan rather than a one-legged Caleb Williams that could not be mobile. He couldn't have enough time in the pocket to throw the ball. They couldn't set up the run. It completely changed this entire game. What would have been had we, maybe seen a healthy Miller Moss out there instead of Caleb Williams? That's another question we can ask ourselves.
So my next question is, how do you think USC will put their mind into Sunday once the selection show gets underway?
Look at the tears on the sidelines from guys like Caleb Williams. He was also very tearful in the post-game press conference right in front of me. He had a towel covering his face and wiping the tears from his eyes. A lot of players very emotional at USC after this game. I don't think that emotion was because they lost the Pac-12 championship. I think it's because they know in losing the Pac-12 championship, their dreams of making the college football playoff and potentially playing for a national championship are gone. They're dashed. They are completely crushed by Utah crushing them in this game. I think that's what it is. So when the final rankings come out by the selection committee on Sunday, I think USC already knows they're not going to be in that top four. I think they're hopeful that they can be in a New Year's Six game. I think they will be. So they will look forward to that at least. And hopefully Caleb Williams can get healthy. I don't know if it's a grade 1, 2, or 3 hamstring strain. We'll see. Probably a grade 1 or 2 if he was able to play on it. That should be enough time, a little over a month maybe, if he can play in that game. So hopefully those guys will get healthy and they'll get those guys back and they'll be in a New Year's Six game. But I think going into Sunday, they're aware that they're not going to be in the top four. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with TCU and Kansas State on Saturday. And it will also be interesting to see once the dust settles, who gets in, if it is the top three that we think, if it is the 3 undefeateds right now as it stands, Georgia, Michigan, and TCU. If it will be Ohio State getting that 4th and final spot with 1 loss, or will the first time in its 9-year creation of the college football playoff, will a 2-loss team in Alabama get that 4th spot? To me, on paper and with my eyes, Alabama looks better than Ohio State. But like I said, no 2-loss team has ever made it in. So we'll see come Sunday.
So my next question is, what are your thoughts on Utah grabbing the win last night, and how do you think it will pressure other teams?
You got to, looking at it outside the box, you really have to tip your cap to Utah. This is a team who has played in the Pac-12 title game 4 out of the last 5 years. And that one year they didn't was that 2020 shortened season where the Pac-12 title was USC and Oregon at the Coliseum in a 6-game season. So they've been in this game 4 times. They've now won it twice. They've won it back to back. They've looked really good this year. They've overcome adversity. One of their players, remember, died, unfortunately, before the season. They were playing for him. They were playing for number 22. So you have to tip your cap and you have to look at Kyle Whittingham for what he's been able to do with this Utah program, both before they got into the Pac-12 and now that they've been in the Pac-12, as he's easily, in my opinion, one of the top 5 best head coaches in all of college football, what he's been able to do. And Cam Rising now, he finishes up his career very well. So you have to tip your cap to Utah. I believe they're probably going to be playing the Rose Bowl. Obviously, with this win, I hope that they get to play Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. That was the matchup we got in the Rose Bowl last year. It was an incredible matchup. I hope we get a rerun of it. We get part 2 of that. And obviously, that would only occur if Alabama gets in. But I'd love to see Ohio State, Utah in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, I did see something on Twitter, a potential Utah-Penn State matchup, but I'm not sure if that will happen.
No, I think that's a chance if Ohio State gets in and Michigan gets in also. I think it will end up being Penn State and Utah in that case. But, if that Michigan-Ohio State game is any indicator, I'd rather see Alabama in that spot and see Utah, Ohio State in Pasadena on New Year's Day.
I just wanted to add this real quick. Looking ahead to Saturday slate, what games do you have your mind on, and do you think that the American Conference game and Big Ten game will be interesting to you?
To me, I'm looking at. Are you talking are you talking about Clemson, North Carolina? Is that the game you're talking about?
I'm talking about the Tulane and Central
Oh,
Florida.
yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. Obviously, that's a matchup of two teams who are very closely ranked. Tulane has been playing absolutely out of their mind this year, so that'll be interesting to see. But no, I'm really looking forward to see TCU Kansas State. I think Kansas State has the defense to potentially stymie TCU and upset their chance of being in it. And it'll be interesting if TCU loses, and if they lose in convincing fashion to Kansas State, then potentially you're looking at Ohio State and Alabama getting in, or maybe even USC having a distant case of trying to stay in that four if TCU were to lose and lose badly. The Clemson North Carolina matchup is interesting, but I don't think either of those teams really, are going to be playing for something bigger than that. Purdue, Michigan in the Big Ten Championship and Georgia LSU in the SEC Championship. If you're Georgia and Michigan watching this Pac-12 title game, watching Caleb Williams get injured and what happened to USC offense once he did get injured, you got to be thinking, we're already going to be in the Final Four. Why do we even need to play our starters, risk people getting hurt in this game? It'll be interesting to see if that plays a factor in any of that, because I know they're going to go out there and they're going to want to win their conference title, but it really doesn't mean anything because you're in the Final Four and the bigger goal is playing for a national championship. So I'm excited to see how those things play out on Saturday.
Definitely looking forward to later today and seeing how everything goes down, and also looking forward to watching the selection show on Sunday. And thank you so much for taking your time on this busy night, and I hope to have you back on soon.
Yeah, thank you, and good luck with your Eagles, and we'll see what happens on Saturday. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.